Welcome everyone back to the Daily Tri and the Triathlon Weekly News Roundup. It has been a long time since I did this and it just felt like the perfect weekend to get it going again. I am pumped. The season is here officially. The Pro Series kicked off in Geelong today and fortunately we couldn't watch it, but there are enough highlights out on Instagram and enough that I can talk off the tracker with, so I decided to recap that for you, as well as that T100 indoor T1 triathlon, I guess they're calling it. I love that format, so I'll talk that through with you as well. And we've got some massive start lists like Oceanside, like T100 Singapore, and Ironman South Africa, which is already next week. So tons to dive into. Thanks again for joining me. Hope you're as excited as I am for the season. Let's get stuck into it. 70.3 Geelong. Oh my goodness, Yellow Gaines, he is the man on fire right now. He had the target on his back being the 70.3 world champion now, and man, did he deliver. A 1:07 half marathon again, like he did in Topa, is unbelievable at this stage of the year. Doesn't look like he's lost any fitness. And then Natalie Van Couverden, another Olympian short course athlete who's moved up the distance. She took the win on the women's side. But let's break it down. How did it happen? First off, before the race even began, we had Cameron Worth announcing, it was surprising, by the way, that he was actually racing this one. He's on every single start list ever, so you never know what he's going to race. But before the race started, he took to Instagram, announced that unfortunately he was having issues with his gears and wouldn't be able to shift for the entirety of the race. So it looked like he wouldn't be featuring, but in fact, he actually had an insane swim split, which set him up really well and managed to get into a fantastic group that almost took him to the front of the race after that swim, but not quite to be.
I swam so well, in fact, there was so many bikes still in transition when I came in out of the water that I actually couldn't find my bike. Normally I don't have any trouble finding my bike because there's not many bikes left.
But yeah, just had to highlight Cam's swim. He said he's been working out all winter long, and that puts him in really good stead for the upcoming, all the races that he's planning on doing. So keep an eye out for Cam. And it was even more impressive because it was a super hot swim on the men's side. Unsurprisingly, because you had the likes of Matt Hauser in there, who I was so excited to see how he would come off after the swim, and just in general how he'd do at the middle distance. He's raced before at the likes of the Noosa Triathlon and done really well there. I thought he might be able to challenge Yellow Gaines. He had a proper build up into this one, but after his swim, his bolts on his TT bar snapped and they zip tied it. A mechanic zip tied it, told him to continue, but he wasn't able to continue on. It was too risky. And that actually made me think back to something I saw in a Braden Curry YouTube video recently, where he was questioning a lot of the pros and how they're getting away with their setups that are allowing them to get a lot more reach and a lot more height.
A lot of bikes, I don't know how a lot of athletes are getting away with the length in the frame and the length in the bars, because as soon as you go so far forward, that leverage on the bars creates an extreme amount of torque.
And I wonder if that's what happened to Matt Hauser here. Could have been something else, but it just made me think of that. So sadly, he had to DNF, and it became a race between mostly 10 guys up the front after that swim that all stuck together. We'll get back to that, because over on the women's side, it was Hannah Berry who had such an impressive swim at the front, with a few other girls like Natalie Van Couverden, Teresa Adam, and Hannah Knighton. But yeah, Barry's one of those athletes who's always on the cusp of either the front or the second pack. So for her to be there this early on in the season is a good sign for her going into T100 Singapore in a couple weeks. So yeah, it became that group of 4 up front on the bike for them, and then it eventually became 3. And then Reagan Hollyhoak managed to bike really well and saw herself up the front of the race as well. But yeah, the rest were about 5 minutes back, including Grace Tech, who's also going to be in T100 Singapore as a newly contracted athlete as well. But she had the best run out of that whole group, so she managed to overcome that 5-minute deficit, take over Reagan Holyoke, and managed to get herself on the podium. If there was more room, she might have got herself the win on this one. But Van Couverden looked so strong. It's now her 4th middle distance race. Looks like she's getting better and better, and I'm excited to see her continue to grow throughout the rest of the season and what she can do at 70.3 Worlds coming up. It's amazing to see how you can come 42nd at the Olympic Games, transition up to the long distance, and really do well. And I think a lot of other short course athletes might be looking at Natalie and saying, no, maybe I can do this too. But switching back over to the men's side, like I said, we had 10 guys for most of it on the bike, but then Ben Hill, ex-pro cyclist, one of the best in the game right now, who I probably should have mentioned in my top pro cyclist video if you haven't seen it already. But yeah, he managed to bike with the likes of Cameron Wurf in a big group and close that gap to these front 10 guys. But only he managed to get across, and the likes of Cam Wurf with one gear that he was utilizing wasn't able to make it across. And that gap after Ben Hill left really extended back out again. So it was going to be a race between these front 10 guys off the bike onto the run, and that included the likes of Yella Gaines, of course, Jake Birtwistle, Taylor Reed, Kenji Nanner, Aaron Royal, all short course guys who have mostly raced each other before. And it was honestly really interesting listening on Aaron and Yella Gaines' podcast called All In Triathlon, if you haven't heard of it. But they said it was so strange for them riding a sub-2 bike split, averaging under 300 watts, and even saying they were bored on the bike, and they're just really calling for that 20-meter draft zone, saying it's a bit ridiculous how close in you can be, calling out for Ironman to make a change. So that was interesting. But either way, they got off onto the run in this big pack. And this is when I really wish the broadcast was working, because seeing it on the tracker, I was thoroughly intrigued of who was going to come away with this one, because Taylor Reed, Kenji Nanner, Jake Birtwistle, all phenomenal short course runners. But Yella just has that experience now over the middle distance, and his pace was just slightly hotter than Taylor Reed and Kenji Nanner at first, who were really pushing themselves to keep with him, you could tell. Funny enough, Taylor Reed actually, we learned, didn't wear socks like he always does in short course, and paid for it. By the end of the run, Yella and Aaron were talking about how bloody and messed up his feet were after the race. Still managed to hang on for third place. Kenji Nanner faded, but Jacob Birtwistle paced it really well, had a bit of a resurgence after the first part of the race, and secured himself second place. He'll be racing Oceanside coming up soon, so definitely keep an eye out on him. Ran a 1:08 there. But yeah, Yella was on pace for a 1:06 for most of that run, took it in just under 1:08, and then yeah, looked so comfortable, made it look so easy. It's just honestly scary to see what he can do. Can't wait to see what he does at Singapore. But then switching gears quite a bit over to the T1 Indoor Triathlon in 11. And I really love this event. I don't know why in the comments there were quite a few people hating on it. I don't think really understanding the concept of it. I just think it's an upgraded version of Supertri E, seeing the guys able to ride on their bikes indoors around a track. I think it's fascinating. There's definitely some drawbacks with it. Like Hayden Wild said, once you're at the back of the pack, there's really no room to overtake or make a dent on the bike, and I could see that. But overall, I just love the fact that you get so many people in this arena for a really, short, fun event, and that's a great way, I think, to get people interested in the sport. And it really was an exciting race. Bo Grand was at the front of the swim, unsurprisingly, but really pushing on the bike as well, trying to make sure the group of three she had was able to stay away, but unfortunately they got caught in the last lap. By the way, she has this beautiful new gold bike for this year, but her run was just unbelievable. Ran a 3-minute kilometer there to take the win, was even able to take a cheeky bow at the end in front of a home crowd there. So yeah, she's looking good to start the year, and just wondering what she's gonna do this year. Is she gonna just keep killing it at the short distance, win another world title, or is she gonna step up to the middle distance, maybe challenge herself a little bit? I know I've heard rumors of that, and some T100 posts have suggested that might be a possibility. So over on the men's side, it was all expectations on Hayden Wild, but he's got a whole bunch of new coaches right now, including Tadej Pogačar's cycling coach as well. So yeah, I was really excited to see how well he went here, but he only managed a 5th place. He was quite far back out of a very fast swim. Henry Graff, Mitch Kolkman, and Duval, they pushed the pace hard on the bike, and no one was able to catch them. They got a really good breakaway going, and that was how it finished. Those three up the front. Henry Graff was the one who took it in the end with an insane kick. Yeah, really impressive young German athlete who got 4th in Abu Dhabi as well. So remember that name. But yeah, Hayden had the fastest run split, unsurprisingly, which is actually a little bit surprising considering he's got Singapore coming up and training for the longer distance, but just ran out of real estate there. But now we're going to switch gears take a look at some of these start lists coming up. But really big thanks again to Buycycle. You've heard me mention them in recent videos. A huge thanks to them for supporting this channel this year, allowing me to create some of these videos for you guys. Definitely check out their website. If you haven't been before, just take a look at it. I think you'll be blown away by how much is on there. Bikes, components, apparel, anything you could think of really, for quite a steal. And if you are looking to list a bike, it's the place to do it. I actually just sold one of my bikes that I had in the garage. Literally had messages in my inbox within an hour. So you can click the link below and use code DailyTry30 for 30% off seller protection, which is a must, I think, when selling your bike. So definitely check them out. Okay, then on to the huge race coming up next weekend, which is the first full Ironman of the Pro Series. And because of that, has attracted 70 pros. And unlike Geelong and Oceanside, it has a pretty robust payout of $175,000, which is much better than the $50,000 on offer at those other races. There's also 5 qualification slots per gender, so there's going to be some battles for those alongside the Pro Series points. But on the women's side, you've got defending champion Marta Sanchez, who had a blinder of a season last year, Ironman Barcelona winner. We saw her win the 70.3 Asia Pacific Championship in Western Australia. Definitely, I think, is going to be targeting this Pro Series this year. She finished 6th place at the World Championships in Nice, so yeah, a really good one to keep your eye out on. She'll be up against the likes of Maya Stage Nielsen. She finished 5th last year at the Pro Series, her best result being 2nd at Ironman Hamburg, as well as Els Visser. We know her for racing so much last year, definitely raced the most I know of out of any pro, but she came 7th overall in the Pro Series, looking to get a good start here. And then Ruth Assel, great to see her back on the start line, hoping for a good year without injury for her. And then Anne Reisman, I think, is the big one to challenge Marta here, coming off her Cozumel win. Big fan of Anne, just got to improve her swim a little bit, so it'll be an interesting dynamic cat and mouse between Anne and her strong bike run and Marta's super strong swim. So I think that's going to be a great race. But then, yeah, on the men's side, Rasmus Svenningsen also there to defend his title. He had an insane ride there, outbiking camera work by 6 minutes. But he'll be up against some other Uber bikers, Leon Chevalier, Matt Burton, Mike Phillips, just to name a few, as well as the big 2 names, Magnus Ditlev and Martin Van Riel. Magnus going for the Pro Series this year, and Martin Van Riel hoping to get his slot for Nice. As we know, he crashed in Cozumel, wasn't able to pick up a slot there. Not great timing for him at all. Just 8 days, I believe, before Singapore, so that's going to be a tough transition for him. But excited to see him take on Magnus at the full distance. But if you look a little deeper on this start list, you'll also see Jonas Schomburg. He is an Olympian German athlete who's known for taking the runs out super hard, but he took on Jan actually at 70.3 Andorra on a road bike, did super well there. Should be good to see how he goes over the full distance, making his transition. And Jamie Riddle as well, who we saw at the front of 70.3 Western Australia, taking it to Gregory Barnaby. He'll be a good one to watch. He's actually started a YouTube channel, which you definitely need to check out. And I'm intrigued to see, we didn't see any penalties that I know of in Geelong, but yeah, will we see any new penalties handed out with that new adjusted time of 3 minutes, and whether that makes a difference? I'm keeping my eye out for that this year. I've been calling for it. A lot of people are unhappy on the age group side of things, I think, but yeah, I think it'll make a big difference on the pro side of things as well. Then moving on, we've got Oceanside in Singapore the same weekend. I kind of like it that way. That way I can just ride off that weekend. It's all about triathlon. But yeah, let's start off with Singapore first. And interesting about this one, unlike last year, they're requiring all the athletes to race this first event, which I think is fantastic. So you get all the hype built up as much as possible. Unless you've got an injury, of course, or an exception like Paula Findlay, who's not going to be there because she's working on her US green card, I believe, during that time. So there'll be a few names missing, but not many. Who will be there, though, is Lucy Charles Barkley, Taylor Knibb, Ashley Jensel, Julie Duran, Flora Duffy. I mean, this is going to be good. And the fact that it's in the heat of Singapore just adds to the chaos of it all, and I love that. Ash got Lucy, we know, on the run last time out, but I'm excited to see how the heat will affect Taylor Knibb here. Will she be able to pull off as good of results we've been seeing? But will that heat affect her like it did at the US Open, where Ashley beat her there? kind of hoping she doesn't run away with it and we get a really close race here. But yeah, with Flora Duffy and Julie Duran spending more time on the TT bikes, I think they're going to get closer and closer to the front. We've also got the debuts of Jess Learmonth, who wasn't able to race in T100 London after an injury, and also Kate Waff, who's been looking pretty good when she's racing Laguna Phuket Triathlon. She actually beat Julie Duran there in 2023. She's a really good cyclist, so I can't see her being off the beat in any of the three disciplines, so I expect both of them to make a difference in that race. Jess Learmonth probably up there swimming with Lucy as well. But I might do a longer preview of this race. I'm not going to give anything away. We do have the 5 missing: Imogen Simmons, Laura Madsen, and Ellie Salthouse coming back from injury. Emma Pallard-Brown, we know, is pregnant. And then, of course, Paula Findlay. And we have Amelia Watkinson, Cecilia Perez, Marlon DeBoer, Lisa Perder, and then an interesting one, I've never heard her before, Mintu Huka. She's over 250th in the rankings. Hasn't been a pro for very long. Don't know how she got selected as the wildcard fill-in here. Maybe T100 struggling a little bit to fill up their fields, and maybe that's why they're sticking to that 20 athlete number right now. Just not able to compete with the lure of Ironman racing, I think. But on the men's side, they don't struggle with that at all. It always looks like a lot of guys putting up their hands for wildcards. This year, Tyler Mislawchuk and Max Stapley are the first wildcards, which I think are fantastic additions. Max said he just wants to be the crazy guy who pushes the swim and the bike super hard. So expect him to change up the dynamics of this race. But yeah, can Yuri Kulin repeat what he did incredibly last year? Will Sam Long be as good as he always is in the heat? Or will it just be another dominating performance by Martin Van Riel? Or will he get haunted by Jelle Gaines again, who has currently been the only one to beat him at the middle distance? Or will it be, who a lot of people are predicting, Hayden Wild, who comes and just steals the show? But there's still so many other names as well, like Vincent Louis, Morgan Pearson, and yeah, just for them all to be thrown in that carnage of the heat, I think is a brilliant way to kick off the season. But then switching it up cross continents here to Oceanside, and oh my goodness, it's absolutely crazy to me that they still have a 50K prize purse for this race. It's one of the biggest Ironman races of the entire year. They're just packed with age groupers this year, over 3,500 entries, I believe. It's always so well supported by brands and media coming to this race. It's just insane that they still keep that low prize purse here, but it doesn't detract from any athletes coming, a ton of them on the start line here. And yeah, taking a quick peek first of all at the women's race. We'll do a bigger preview, don't worry on this one. Tamara Jewett strikes me right away. I know she's targeting a full distance race as well this year, but I'm glad she's not racing the T100 this year and going for the Ironman 70.3s with that 12-meter draft zone. You can take advantage of that, and we've seen her win here before, so it'd be good to see if she can regain that form she had. But yeah, Paula, because she's not racing Singapore, is here racing, and she's gonna be hard to beat. But there's a couple other names on here that are hidden that you might not have noticed. Victoria Lopez, first of all, is one of the best swimmers, if not the best swimmer in the sport right now, coming up from short course. Keep an eye out on her. And then Maya Kingma, this is the big one you need to watch out for. She is arguably one of the best cyclists in our sport, and that's a bit of a foreshadow for my video coming out this week about the best pro women on the bike in our sport. But yeah, 7th at the Olympics this year, transitioning now up to the middle distance, an insane swimmer as well. And yeah, just a monster on the bike. She's one of the only few in the women's short course side of things who has created breakaways before in the same leagues as Jess Learmonth, Georgia Taylor Brown, Flora Duffy. So I think she could really take it to the rest of these athletes. The run isn't her strong suit as much, but yeah, when you're getting 7th at the Olympics in short course, you know it's still pretty good. And she's actually my favorite to take the win here. And then on to the men's side. And this is the level of a 70.3 World Championship field we used to see a few years ago. The Norwegian trio now of Christian Blumenfeld, Gustav Eden, and Casper Storms arriving, hoping to kick off their pro season. Taking on Lionel Sanders, of course, hoping to defend his title. And Rudy Von Berg, Ben Canoe, Trevor Foley, hoping to lead the way for the USA. And then the likes of Joe Skipper, Patrick Lange, Braden Curry, and Cameron Worth. He's actually confirmed to be racing here at this one. they're all chasing this pro series, and they've struggled before at the 70.3 races to get many points. I did mention it earlier, by the way, but Braden Curry did get 7th at Geelong and got some good points there. So he'll be hoping to get the second 70.3 out of the way and can focus on the full distances. So yeah, just overall insane start list. But like the women's, there's a couple other sneaky names on here to keep an eye out for. Jake Birtwistle, like I said, coming over from Geelong. Then Kevin McDowell, returning from injury, coming back to this distance. Should be a good one to follow. And then Seth Ryder and Roberto Sanchez, 2 short course athletes as well that could make a difference. Definitely in the swim and the run, you know that for sure. So yeah, just a great start list, and we've got tons of good matchups already coming up soon, and I'll definitely do my best to cover with highlights as best I can. I'm working a lot more this year as well as traveling, so I can't promise every weekend, but if you do want to support the channel, please do drop in the description and click on that Patreon link. At the very least, please leave me a comment. I love reading them, and drop me a like as well. Thanks so much. Have a good one. We'll see you in the next one.